Huh? Is everybody at home?
Uh,
Oh, I don't know.
Councillor Van Meerberg, could you mute, please? Thank you.
Colleagues, we'll begin in just a few moments.
Just having some technical difficulties with the streaming. We'll just be a couple more minutes.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Certainly, councillors who are participating through our electronic process, and for all of you streaming in to the 9th meeting of City Council. The City of London is committed to making every effort to provide alternate formats and communication supports for council, standing, or advisory committee meetings and information on request. To make a request for any city service, please contact accessibility@london.ca or 519-661-2489, extension 2425. Now to colleagues. I'll look for any disclosures of pecuniary interest. And I'll ask you to raise your hand on the monitor if to be recognized for that or anything else. Seeing none, I have not been made aware of any recognitions, and no confidential matters to be considered in public. So, colleagues, with respect to the next point on the agenda, which is our closed session, I'll be looking for a motion to approve a change in order motions to provide for the closed session to occur later in the meeting and report out of closed session also later in the meeting. I'd look for a mover. That's Councillor Van Holst, seconded by Councillor Van Meerbergen. Sorry, Paul. I'll ask the clerk, for the benefit of those watching, to read out the motion, please.
That pursuant to section 6.5 of the council procedure bylaw, the following changes in order be approved. A, stage 4 council in closed session be considered after stage 13 bylaws, with the exception of bill number 161 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on the 5th day of May 2020, which will be considered prior to stage 14 adjournment. And B, stage 9 added reports, item 9.1, 8th report of council in closed session be considered after stage 4 council in closed session.
Thank you very much. And now we'll call the vote in just a moment. So it'll be the roll call in the usual fashion, colleagues. Councillor Van Holst.
Yes.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Slee. Councillor Slee. We'll move back to him if we can in just a moment to see if we can pick up the audio. Because I don't have the video there. Deputy, are you there, Councillor Slee?
No. He's muted.
Can we unmute you, or can you unmute you, please? We'll move on for a moment. Deputy Mayor Helmer.
Yay.
Councillor Cassidy.
Yes.
Councillor Squire.
Yes.
Councillor Morgan.
Yes.
Councillor Lehman.
Yes.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yay.
Councillor Van Meerbergen.
Yes.
Councillor Turner.
Yes.
Councillor Pelosa.
Yes.
Councillor Kayabага.
Yes.
Councillor Hillier.
Yes.
I vote yes. Councillor Slee, are you there?
Yes. We'll just mark him as a no because he's not voting or absent. I'll vote him as absent for that vote.
We will acknowledge Councillor Slee as an absent in the absence of, so I'll turn it now over to the clerk.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 14-0.
Colleagues, I'll be looking now for a motion to approve the minutes from April 21, 2020 to be put on the floor. I'll look for a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Hillier, seconded by Councillor Lehman. Any discussion? Then in a moment, we'll call the vote. Councillor Van Holst. Please take yourself off mute, Councillor Van Holst. There we go.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Salee.
Yes, and apologies, my screen was being weird before.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Helmer.
Yay.
Councillor Cassidy.
Yes.
Councillor Squire.
Yes.
Councillor Morgan.
Yes.
Councillor Lehman.
Yes.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yay.
Councillor Van Meerbergen.
Yes.
Councillor Turner.
Yes.
Councillor Pelosa.
Yes.
Councillor Kayubaga.
Yes.
Councillor Hillier.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you. Colleagues, under communications and petitions, there's one added communication related to 8.3 or 2.1 of the 10th report of the Strategic Priorities and Policy Committee, COVID-19 financial impacts and additional measures for community relief. I'm asking for a motion to receive the communication and refer it to be considered with the item to which it is related. Is there a mover? Councillor Turner, seconded by Councillor Pelosa. Any discussion? Then we will call the question. Councillor Van Holst.
Yes.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Salee.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Helmer.
Yay.
Councillor Cassidy.
Yes.
Councillor Squire.
Yes.
Councillor Morgan.
Yes.
Councillor Lehman.
Yes.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yay.
Councillor Van Meerbergen.
Yes.
Councillor Turner. Councillor Turner, sorry. Thank you.
Yes.
Councillor Pelosa.
Yes.
Councillor Kayubaga.
Yes.
Councillor Hillier. Councillor Hillier, we didn't hear.
Yes.
Thanks very much. I vote yes.
Closing the vote, and the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you. There are no notices, there are no motions to which notice is given. So I'll turn your attention to the reports. The fifth report of the Community and Protective Services Committee. I'll call on Councillor Lewis, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have not been made aware of any items that any colleagues wish to be pulled, so I'm going to put the entire report on the floor. We really just had 4 items, all related to housing, homelessness prevention, and the supportive housing development at 744 Dundas Street.
Thank you. Does anyone have any of those items they wish to deal with separately? Seeing none. Any discussion on the report on the floor? Seeing none. Councillor Lehman, excuse me.
Thank you. Just a question through you, Chair, to the staff. The numbers for funding from federal and provincial governments, do they apply to future, only to future actions taken or actions that we've already taken? And would they have impact on the deficit numbers that we were seeing or presented with from the city treasurer and the city manager in the previous meeting?
Would we look to Mr. Dickens for that?
Through you, Your Worship, thank you for the question. The funding that has come down from the province and the federal government is targeted funding for our current COVID response. The funding agreements are in place through to the end of March 2021. We are looking at how we can use some of those funds to support initiatives that got off the ground in early March that link to some of our housing stability plan. So to answer your question, it's mostly targeted to current interventions and through until the end of March 2021. And it would not, in my opinion, and I can defer to the city treasurer to correct me, would not contribute to any of the city deficit.
Not sure if the city treasurer wants to correct you. If not, we'll ask Councillor Lehman if he has another question.
Just a comment. I just want, you know, in the spirit of helping those most at risk and working all together on this. I'm on the board of the RBC Place Convention Center, and right now we're operating with a skeletal staff, but with facilities such as the kitchen able to pitch in. I'm pleased to let everyone know that starting tomorrow, the convention center is going to be providing 100 lunches a day for 7 days a week, and could ramp that up, working in conjunction with the food bank. As we saw, the convention center numbers are looking pretty dire, but still, with the skeletal staff that are working hard at rescheduling events and making sure when we come back from this, we'll be able to contribute to our financial situation. Kudos out to the management for thinking about those less vulnerable, or more vulnerable, sorry, in our city, and providing these lunches in conjunction with the food bank.
Thank you, Councillor Lehman. We actually could have had you help fund the RBC Place, because when we went through that name change, you had to pay $5 for each time you called it the convention center, and you did 2 hits on that, but I'll let you give them the $10 next time you see them, assuming that's still in play. Deputy Mayor Helmer.
Thank you. Just some brief comments. Appreciated the opportunity to weigh in on committee about these items. But on 2.1, good to see the vacancy dropping at London Middlesex Community Housing, although it's not quite yet at the target. I just wanted to say a thank you to Ms. Dadersbeer and the staff over at London Middlesex Community Housing for continuing to bring that vacancy number down. On 2.2 and 2.3, certainly thank you very much to the provincial government and the federal government for making those funds available. I know they were put to use, as described by Mr. Dickens, just in his answer to Councillor Lehman right away, and it really helped us to create that isolation and physical distancing for folks who were living in shelter or unsheltered right away, which I think was really crucially important, and I don't want to let it pass without commenting on that. And 2.4, glad to see the funding that was allocated for supportive housing in the Core AI Action Plan going ahead relatively quickly. I have heard some feedback that some folks in the community would like to see it going into more than one project. They were hoping that the $5 million could support more than one project, but certainly glad to see it going into a project. And I think expectations in the area where this is being built, which is in Old East Village, are very high, that not only the building itself will be designed very well and that it'll be a great new building, but also that the operating funding will be sufficient so that it can be run extremely well and provide a great place to live for people who have challenges, including the operating funding needed for effective supports for people who are staying in their housing. So I'm glad to see that one moving ahead.
Thanks very much. I have no other. Councillor Van Holst, please go ahead. And by the way, if you do wish to speak too, the other option aside from the visual where we don't have all 14 councillors on the screen is to hit the hand button on your device, and then we can recognize you as a participant from here. Go ahead, Councillor Van Holst, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, I just wanted to thank the Housing Development Corporation for coming up with some very creative means of funding. So they're putting the funding into these projects, but doing it in a way that secures very long-term benefits for London. And I find that I'm very pleased with that. So thank you.
Thank you. I show no other speakers on the list. So I will turn it back to Councillor Lewis then.
Nothing further from me, Your
Okay.
Worship, so I think we can call the vote.
Let's call the question then. Councillor Van Holst.
Yes.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Salee.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Helmer.
Yay.
Councillor Cassidy.
Yes.
Councillor Squire.
Yes.
Councillor Morgan.
Yes.
Councillor Lehman.
Yes.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yay.
Councillor Van Meerbergen.
Yes.
Councillor Turner.
Yes.
Councillor Pelosa.
Yes.
Councillor Kayabaga.
Yes.
Councillor Hillier.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Closing the vote and the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you. I'll turn your attention to the 7th report of the Planning and Environment Committee and turn it over to Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to place the report from the 7th meeting of the Planning and Environment Committee on the floor. I am not aware of any items that need to be pulled, but I leave that up to my colleagues to make that known.
Does anyone wish anything to be dealt with separately? Seeing none, any comments or questions with respect to the committee report? Seeing none, then I will call the question. Councillor Van Holst.
Yes.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Salee.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Helmer.
Yay.
Councillor Cassidy.
Yes.
Councillor Squire.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Yes.
Councillor Lehman.
Yes.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yay.
Councillor Van Meerbergen.
Yes.
Councillor Turner.
Yes.
Councillor Pelosa. I'm sorry, I didn't pick up on that. Councillor Pelosa?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Kayabaga.
Yes.
Councillor Hillier.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Closing the vote, and the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you. Now I'll turn your attention to the 10th report of the Strategic Priorities and Policy Committee. Deputy Mayor Helmer.
I will put all of the items on the floor. All the committee recommendations in the end were supported unanimously. I haven't heard from anybody to pull any of them. Colleagues will remember this is the COVID response and initial financial impacts and the number of governance related things for housing and London Hydro all on the floor.
Does anyone wish to have any of these items dealt with separately? Councillor Morgan.
Yes, I'd like to deal with 2.1 separately because I'd like to make a proposed amendment to it.
So noted. Thank you. Any other items to be dealt with separately? Pardon me, Councillor Hillier, I saw it flash up. Are you looking to speak to this? All right, thank you. All right, so we have, with the exception of 2.1 on the agenda, we have the balance of the SPPC meeting moved. Any comments or questions on those with the exception of 2.1? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Councillor Van Holst.
Yes.
Councillor Lewis. Councillor Lewis, we didn't. Thank you. Councillor Salee.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Helmer.
Yay.
Councillor Cassidy.
Yes.
Councillor Squire.
Yes.
Councillor Morgan.
Yes.
Councillor Lehman.
Yes.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yay.
Councillor Van Meerbergen.
Yes.
Councillor Turner.
Yes.
Councillor Pelosa.
Yes.
Councillor Kayabaga.
Yes.
Councillor Hillier.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 15-0.
Okay, I'll put 2.1 on the floor, and Councillor Morgan has an amendment.
Councillor Morgan.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So I did circulate some notes on this for colleagues, as well as last week I circulated the FCM's report. So I just want to start by saying I'm very supportive of everything in this particular section. And last week at committee, I indicated to colleagues that I would likely bring an amendment forward to support the Federation of Canadian Municipalities position on this. Given I circulated something to council colleagues, I'm just going to read it so that it's on the public record, since I didn't make the added agenda in time, given the discussions I wanted to have with the FCM on this before I put the motion forward. So it says, as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has upended life in London, presenting an unprecedented health, economic, and social crisis for our city, province, and country. London is now facing the daunting challenge of more than 33 million in unrecoverable financial losses by the end of August to deal with the fallout of COVID-19. Costs could be much higher for governments and businesses and organizations as they transition into economic recovery. The City of London, alongside with communities across Canada, is working flat out to get people and businesses through this. Last week, SPPC approved a number of measures for Council's consideration. Part of that direction includes lobbying other levels of government for support. As a member of the board of directors of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, I can tell you the FCM has developed a credible, evidence-based plan outlining the need for immediate emergency operating funding from federal and provincial governments to ensure Canadians have access to the essential municipal services they depend on. FCM is calling for at least $10 billion in emergency federal operating funding, which will ensure vital services such as public transit, emergency services, waste management, homelessness prevention efforts continue. Londoners are counting on vital local services as London continues to pursue every opportunity to minimize and mitigate unrecoverable financial losses. The federal and provincial governments must work hand in hand with local governments. Therefore, I respectfully ask that item 2.1 of the SPPC report be amended by adding a following new part G. G, that the mayor be requested to advise the federal and provincial government that the City of London endorses the Federation of Canadian Municipalities' call for the federal and provincial governments to provide $10 billion in emergency operating assistance for municipalities to address current fiscal challenges and continue to provide vital services to Londoners, including our most vulnerable populations. It being noted that civic administration will ensure that work being undertaken by the City of London aligns with this call for action. And as I noted in my correspondence, the mayor is willing to second my amendment, and I've consulted with civic administration and government relations. And I'll say also, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, has come out in support of FCM's position as well. And we will not be the only municipality considering a formal endorsement of FCM's position based on a conference call I had on Thursday with the board. A number of municipalities are going to seek support, direct support, and statements of support from their councils to support FCM's lobby efforts to try to secure funding. So I put that on the floor for colleagues' consideration.
So that's moved by Councillor Morgan, seconded by me. Comments or questions with respect to that? Councillor Squire, please.
Yeah, just to make sure that transit has its sort of say in this matter. We're of course supportive of this from a transit point of view, and in fact, my understanding is that the FCM ask really includes an ask for transit funding that would be great assistance to London Transit. But transit also has its own lobbying efforts. The Ontario Public Transit Association, the Canadian Urban Transit Association, that are working with FCM. Everybody's pulling in the same direction to get assistance in this particular area, as well as somewhat independently. But I think governments are getting the message from all of these organizations that help is needed, so I'm completely supportive of this. I'm also very supportive when I see and talk to people and hear that all organizations are working together and not independently to have different asks, so that they're all parallel asks, asking for the same assistance, and trying to get what assistance we can from other levels of government. Although I have to say, the federal government has certainly been really responsive to individual needs up till now, in terms of individuals who've lost their jobs, small businesses. They've been very helpful in terms of providing loans and providing direct access to money for individuals. So I don't, although we'll be asking them for money, I think they've been very good up till now in providing assistance to people that immediately sort of needed it. But by the end of June, London Transit Commission will certainly be in need, and I may talk to that a little more when we come to the rest of this report.
Thank you, Councillor Squire. Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the mover, or possibly you can answer it as the seconder, I just want for clarity, this is a new part G, and so the original G will now be H, or will this replace the original G?
I'll ask the clerk to respond to that.
Through Mr. Mayor, that was my error. I steered Councillor Morgan wrong with the wrong part, so it should be an H. It's not meant to replace the current G. It's a new H.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. Councillor Hopkins.
Sorry about that, Your Worship. I'm very in favor of supporting the CM requested municipalities as the main representative for the City of London on the board. I know AMO is also advocating the province for funding, especially when it comes to transit as well. With the larger urban cities, the need for transit funding is vital. So happy to lend my support in this motion, but more important, my voice at AMO dealing with the province on behalf of the municipality to secure funding as well.
Thank you. I see no other speakers on the list. This has been duly moved and seconded, so I will call the question. Councillor Van Holst.
Yes.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Salee.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Helmer.
Yes.
Councillor Cassidy.
Yes.
Councillor Squire.
Yes.
Councillor Morgan.
Yes.
Councillor Lehman.
Yes.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah.
Councillor Van Meerbergen.
Yes.
Councillor Turner.
Yes.
Councillor Pelosa.
Yes.
Councillor Kayabaga.
Yes.
Councillor Hillier.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Closing the vote and the motion carries 15-0.
Anything else for you, Deputy Mayor? Pardon me? Oh, yes, 2.1 as amended. So as amended, we will need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Squire, seconded by Councillor Lewis. Any comments or questions? Councillor Squire.
I just wanted to sort of use this opportunity to just bring council up to date on the transit aspect of the COVID-19 effect. We had our own meeting last night with regard to the economic impacts. So some of you may know or not know that what we have done is taken the budget money for our 2020 service program. In other words, enhancement that we were going to do to service in the latter part of 2020, as well as assessment growth, hopefully money that we were going to be using for things such as industrial service, put those off until 2021. And by that, at reallocation of our budget, we're going to be able to continue with what we're doing, which is really running a transit service without fares, probably until mid-June, no later than that. So I'm really pleased that the transit has sort of taken that on and said, look, we appreciate we're asking other levels of government for money, but first we have to do everything we can internally with the money we were given by the city to deal with the circumstance that we're in. And in fact, putting these service changes off for a year may make some sense in any event. We don't know how quickly the transit service is going to get up and running again. We have no real idea of what is ridership going to look like after this. Is it going to be much lower? I can tell you that right now, even with students leaving, we're running at about 33% of capacity, and it goes up when students leave. Specialized transit is about 11% of capacity. So we're operating at a low level of capacity. Even with this, this is costing us about $2.2 million a month to do what we're doing. Very expensive, but we made the decision to keep transit going. To compare that to other jurisdictions where some are doing $2.2 million a week. Some of the larger, it's costing them some $4 million a week. You can figure out which municipalities that might be. This is a huge issue, but stopping transit right now as we're starting to make a recovery didn't make sense to those at the London Transit Commission. But I wanted to let council know that we took some pretty serious steps to reallocate our budget to cover what's happening now. So we're pretty pleased about that, but it wasn't a very happy meeting when you have to put off things that you've been working on for 4 or 5 years. So I want to thank transit staff for coming forward to that and taking that real initiative to handle this situation. And if we get money from the federal government, even better, but we're still cutting ourselves to meet what we have to meet. So I thought that would be useful for council to know that.
Thank you, Councillor Squire. I see no other comments. So with that, I will call the question. Councillor Van Holst.
Yes.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Salee.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Helmer.
Yay.
Councillor Cassidy.
Yes.
Councillor Squire.
Yes.
Councillor Morgan.
Yes.
Councillor Lehman,
Yes.
Councillor Hopkins,
Yay.
Councillor Van Meerbergen,
Yes.
Councillor Turner,
Yes.
Councillor Pelosa,
Yes.
Councillor Kayubaga,
Yes.
Councillor Hillier,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Closing the vote and the motion carries 15-0.
Deputy Mayor, I think that's it for you. Thank you. I'm not aware of any deferred matters, inquiries, nor emergent motions. So I will go to bylaws. Oh, pardon me, Councillor Squire. I now see you waving. Please go ahead, please.
It was what I call a late wave. It was late. I apologize. I do have one inquiry. What I try to do, if constituents are asking me things, I try to bring those inquiries forward. The number one inquiry I've been getting, I don't know if it's a surprise, as the weather's getting better, people are eager to be able to utilize their backyard fires when they're alone with and they have their families, constituents. Just they want to know what's happening in this area. And this isn't an independent board, the fire service. It's part of the service of the City of London. There isn't a bylaw presenting outdoor fires, so they're really asking me that question. Why can't we have outdoor fires? And that includes two constituents in my own house who insisted that I ask this question, particularly a 20-year-old who loves her summers outside. So I wonder if someone could answer that for me.
Why don't we try Ms. Smith for this?
Through you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor Squaw, for your question. It's a question I've had from a number of councillors over the last couple of weeks. So Chief Hamer is currently reviewing this ban with her staff and the association, as our number one priority is the safety of our fire staff and the community. However, we understand the desire of many Londoners, like your daughter, to enjoy their backyard amenities too. So we appreciate your patience in this, and we appreciate the community's impatience. We want to make the best decisions while keeping staff and their safety as a priority. So we're reviewing the ban. We'll send council an email in the coming days with the details regarding lifting the ban. We'll share this information through a media release and social media so that Londoners are aware exactly when the ban will be lifted and what safety protocols will be put in place.
Councillor Squire.
Thank you for that answer. I guess the only reminder, I am a bit wary of people making decisions when there's a bylaw in place allowing people to do it. I am a little wary of people saying we have to have a fire ban during a period of time. It's not clear to me, I guess, is what I'm saying. What is the safety risk with fire today that didn't exist before COVID? I'm not saying I agree or disagree with this decision. These are just things people ask me when I say, well, we're not having backyard fires because of this COVID situation. They say to me, well, what does the COVID situation have to do with a backyard fire? And I'm sure there's an answer to it, but I just would like to hear it.
Ms. Smith.
Through you, Your Worship, you're right. When we first put the ban in place, it was a resource issue, and the priority was keeping our fire staff safe and healthy. And as you can imagine, when they went out to a non-emergency, like an open air burn complaint, that we were putting a number 4 to 6 fire staff closely in a confined space in a vehicle. And at that time, it was impossible to practice social distancing and keep those safety protocols in place. And our priority was to keep our staff in place and maintain a safe and healthy fire force so that they were available when an emergency arose. So that was the number one priority. It was about social distancing of both keeping our fire staff safe when they went out to these calls.
Councillor Squire.
I won't belabor it anymore. I think I've made my point, so I'll just leave it there.
Thanks very much. I did not mean to rush through inquiries. I was not made aware of any, and nor was I made aware of any emergent motions. So, Councillor Van Holst, where are you on this? Are you looking to talk under the inquiries component? Audio, please.
There we go. Yes, if I may, about the inquiries.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just following up on what answers Councillor Squire was given, because this issue came to me as well. Ms. Smith said that in the beginning, they were trying to secure social distancing for the fire staff. So I wanted to ask, what are they doing now that's different?
Ms. Smith?
Through you, Your Worship, that is part of what Chief Hamer and our staff are looking at. So when we respond to an open air burn complaint now, we've put different procedures in place, and our fire prevention staff are responding to those complaints, and they're attending in a vehicle with only one person. So that's the measures that we are looking to put into place permanently, so that we can lift the ban hopefully in the coming days.
Councillor Van Holst? Okay, good. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you very much. So I want to thank them for making those measures, because it's important to many people. Thanks.
Thank you. And I think as has been indicated, there are a number of councillors who have brought this forward, and I'm not here to speak for Ms. Smith or the fire department, but I know they're dealing and speaking to this issue, and I think more to come. I see no other inquiries. I'm careful as I say that. I see no emergent motions. So we're going to start, we'll go through bylaws 162 through 167 before we go into closed session. And then separately, we will deal with Bill 161 after that. So what I'm looking for is a mover and seconder for introduction and first reading of bills 162 through 167. Councillor Hopkins, seconded by Councillor Van Meerbergen. I will call the vote. Councillor Van Holst.
Yes.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Salee.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Helmer.
Yay.
Councillor Cassidy.
Yes.
Councillor Squire.
Yes.
Councillor Morgan.
Yes.
Councillor Lehman.
Yes.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yay.
Councillor Van Meerbergen.
Yes.
Councillor Turner.
Yes.
Councillor Pelosa.
Yes.
Councillor Kayabaga.
Yes.
Councillor Hillier.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Now I'll look for a mover and seconder of second reading of bills 162 through 167. Moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Van Holst. Any discussion?
The last motion carried 15-0.
Sorry, I should always wait for the clerk to let us go to the second reading. So I'll let you repeat that so it didn't get garbled over my energy to go to the next portion.
The first reading of those bill numbers passed 15-0.
We have, thank you, we have a mover and a seconder for bills 162 through 167. Any discussion? Seeing none, then I will call the question. Councillor Van Holst.
Yes.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Salee.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Helmer.
Yay.
Councillor Cassidy.
Yes.
Councillor Squire.
Yes.
Councillor Morgan.
Yes.
Councillor Lehman.
Yes.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yay.
Councillor Van Meerbergen.
Yes.
Councillor Turner.
Yes.
Councillor Pelosa.
Yes.
Councillor Kayabaga.
Yes.
Councillor Hillier.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Closing the vote, and the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you. Now I'll look for mover and seconder of third reading and enactment of bills 162 through 167, moved by Councillor Pelosa, seconded by Councillor Lehman. I will call the vote. Councillor Van Holst.
Yes.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Salee.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Helmer.
Yay.
Councillor Cassidy.
Yes.
Councillor Squire.
Yes.
Councillor Morgan.
Yes.
Councillor Lehman.
Yes.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yay.
Councillor Van Meerbergen.
Yes.
Councillor Turner.
Yes.
Councillor Pelosa.
Yes.
Councillor Kayabaga.
Yes.
Councillor Hillier.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Closing the vote, and the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, we're about to go into closed session. Before we do, I think we have to rearrange some of the deck chairs. So I will, I'll look for a motion to go into confidential session, moved by Councillor Pelosi, seconded by Councillor Turner. Any discussion? This will be a recorded vote. Councillor Van Holst.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you. Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Salee.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Helmer. Councillor Cassidy.
Yes.
Councillor Squire.
Yes.
Councillor Morgan.
Yes.
Councillor Lehman.
Yes.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yay.
Councillor Van Meerbergen.
Yes.
Councillor Turner.
Yes.
Councillor Pelosi.
Yes.
Councillor Kayubaga.
Yes.
Councillor Hillier.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you. Now we will rearrange the deck chairs.
Members of the public that may be joining us, we're going into closed session to discuss the 4 matters that were listed on the public agenda.